This is my first video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Thursday morning. Let's talk about some news. And it is another windy day here in Nicosia. Every day has been very, very windy here since I arrived. But Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son, he arrived in Belfast. And upon his arrival, he was greeted by the Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak, and Biden just kind of pushed Sunak aside because Biden had no idea who Rishi Sunak was, and he probably had no idea where he was. But that was Bidenopoulos arriving in Belfast. Let's see here. Where is my coffee? That is the mug today, and it has an ape, a monkey, painted on the side of this mug. I don't know why, but all right. Interesting design. So let's now talk about, what should we talk about? How about the Seymour Hersh article that dropped yesterday called what's it called? The trading with the enemy. I was going to say the enemy within. Trading with the enemy. And this is an interesting article. And it's an article that I believe can be divided in four parts, really. But the main point of this article is to highlight the divisions and the power struggle in the US government between the US State Department and the Biden White House on the one hand, and the intel agencies and some people on the Pentagon on the other side. And it's a power struggle about Ukraine. What should they do about Ukraine, and how should they go forward in fighting this war with Russia, fighting this proxy war with Russia? And that's really what this article is about. It's not so much connected to Nord Stream. It really highlights the power struggle between the Department of State, Biden White House, and Intel and Pentagon. And it really is an article that can be divided in four parts. The first part of this article talks about the Zelensky regime corruption, and Seymour Hersh, he has his source or his sources that are giving him this information. And basically, one of the sources says that the Zelensky regime is corrupt. Surprise, surprise. The Zelensky regime is corrupt. And they took US taxpayer money to buy diesel fuel, and they were skimming off the top of their diesel fuel purchases. And the source for Seymour Hersh says that they managed to embezzle something like $400 million last year. Not bad for Zelensky and his entourage. $400 million. So this money was supposed to buy diesel fuel. It did buy diesel fuel to keep the Ukraine military fighting the war, but the Zelensky regime, well, 10% for the big guy. They used the 10% for the big guy model, and they managed to pocket, according to this source, $400 million last year. Now, that's not the interesting part of this revelation, in my opinion. The interesting part of this revelation is that the Zelensky regime, they were purchasing Russian diesel fuel. That's the shocking part. So they're buying Russian diesel fuel on the secondary markets or via resellers, or wherever they're getting the Russian diesel fuel from, or the diesel fuel from. But at the end of the day, this diesel fuel is indeed Russian. And according to this source for Seymour Hersh, he said that the Russian oligarchs are laughing all the way to the bank. They're making millions off of the Zelensky regime using US taxpayer money to buy diesel fuel, which at the end of the day happens to be Russian diesel fuel. And this diesel fuel is being used by the Ukraine military to keep the war going. And of course, the Zelensky regime is pocketing their cut. 400 million. Wow, it's a lot of money, and that's just from diesel fuel. Can you imagine all the money they're making from reselling weapons? And the article talks about that. It talks about how Zelensky and people in the Zelensky government and generals in the Ukraine military, they're lining up to create businesses and fronts to sell weapons on the black market. It talks about how they're like all lining up to create these companies, whether they're located in the Caymans or in other locations, wherever these companies are located. Actually, I think the article mentions that some of the companies are associated with Poland and Latvia as well. I'm kind of scrolling through the article to see if I can find it. No, Poland and Czechia. Poland and Czechia. Many government ministries in Kiev have been literally competing, I was told, to set up front companies for export contracts for weapons and ammunition with private arms dealers around the world, all of which provide kickbacks. Many of those companies are in Poland and Czechia, but others are thought to exist in the Persian Gulf and Israel. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there are others in places like the Cayman Islands and Panama, and there are lots of Americans involved. An American expert on international trade told me. Big surprise, Poland and Czechia, which two countries have been very, very aggressive and bellicose for the proxy war against Russia. Which two countries are always the most aggressive for continuing to fight this proxy war? Poland and Czechia and the Baltics. So big surprise there. Everyone's making money. Seymour Hersh says Americans are involved in this. Poland, Czechia, they're setting up companies. Ukraine generals are setting up these companies. They're exporting weapons on the black market, and they're all making money. And actually, CIA Director Burns, according to Seymour Hersh, he went to Kiev in January. Remember that? When Mr. Burns paid Zelensky a visit in January, another one of his secret meetings that CNN reported on. And allegedly, Burns told Zelensky that, you're being way too corrupt. And the big complaint in this article was that the generals, people in the military, in the Ukraine military, were upset because Zelensky was snorting up all of the big profits from this corruption. he was taking the biggest cuts from all of this corruption. The word that Seymour Hersh uses with this Burns-Zelensky meeting was that the generals saw Zelensky's greed. Incredible. They're upset with Zelensky because of his greed. Anyway, that's the first part of this article. It talks about Zelensky's corruption. The second part of this article talks about the struggle in the Biden White House and how Sullivan and Blinken and Seymour Hersh focuses on Sullivan and Blinken, his sources. That's who they focus on. Basically, they say that these two guys are a bunch of idiots. the intel community and some people in the Pentagon think these guys are in way over their head. They have no idea what they're doing. Basically, they say that Sullivan was like an errand boy for the Clinton and Biden presidential campaigns. He was just some campaign manager or assistant, and somehow he ended up as one of the top Biden White House officials, and Blinken was some pencil pusher in the U.S. government, and he ended up being Secretary of State. That's basically what this article says, and these guys are just completely incompetent. They have no idea what they're doing, and all of a sudden, they're in this position where they've been put in charge to fight a proxy war against Russia and China, and these guys actually believe that they're going to destroy Russia and they're going to destroy China. And that's the other part of this article. The intel officials, they hate them. They think these guys are losers. Some people in the Pentagon think these guys are losers. They also say that the Biden White House, Biden himself, is completely just out of it. He listens to Sullivan and Blinken, but Biden's like lost in space. And so you have these two incompetent guys. I would throw Newland in there as well. You have these incompetent guys pushing the world towards a nuclear disaster and fighting a proxy war against Russia, and soon fighting a proxy war against China. So that's the second part of this article. The third part of this article talks about how this intel source said that not only is Biden lost in space, not only is Sullivan and Blinken clueless and incompetent, but it says that Russian President Vladimir Putin is also irrational, and that he's not looking after the best interest of his country, and that Putin is taking this whole Ukraine thing way too emotional. It's become too emotional for Putin, and he's acting in an irrational way, and he's doing things that are hurting Russia. That is the third part of this article. And the fourth part of this article says that, or at least the source for Seymour Hersh says that there is one leader in the U.S. government, because basically you just have a bunch of incompetent crazies, no real leadership in the U.S. government at this moment. But there is one person who is the voice of leadership and reason, and it says that that person is General Mark Milley. That's what the article pretty much says, and it's General Milley who sees things for what they are. And the source tells Hersh that Milley, he believes that the Russian military has lost. He believes that Putin has lost this war. The Russian military is in tatters. The Russian economy is in tatters. And it's over. And with this big offensive, the Ukraine military will deliver the final blow to the Russian military. The morale is low. Putin is acting irrationally. The Russian military has shown that it's second rate. It's a second-class military. It has no idea what it's doing. It's just a big disorganized mess in Ukraine. And Milley really believes this. Like, Milley really believes that the Russian military is on its last legs, and the offensive, the big Ukraine offensive, will be the final blow to Putin and the Russian military. And Milley is so confident about this that he has actually tasked, and that is the word that Seymour Hersh, the intel source, uses in this article. He has tasked the Pentagon to draft an end-of-war treaty to present to the Russians after the defeat on the Ukraine battlefield. And these surrender terms will be favorable to Ukraine, and Milley is going to present these terms to the Russian military as it is defeated in Ukraine. So that's the article, everyone. That is the article from Seymour Hersh. I'll put a link to this Substack post down below. Trading with the enemy. Now, France, according to Polish media, is blocking the production and the delivery of weapons and ammunition to Ukraine. This is according to Polish media. France is blocking the EU's decision to finance the supply of ammunition to Ukraine. Polish media outlet PAP claimed on Wednesday, citing high-ranking sources in the bloc. Paris is said to be demanding reimbursement for weapons that Kiev has not even requested. The outlet stated that Paris is also insisting on changes to the way member states are compensated for providing military aid to Ukrainian forces. The draft contained a provision that ammunition was to be reimbursed only on the basis of demands submitted by Ukraine. Paris, however, wants, without explaining why, the provision to be deleted, the unnamed EU source told PAP, Polish media. So this has to do with this peace fund. That's what the EU calls it. They call it their peace fund. Really what it is a slush fund for weapons purchases and procurements and delivery to Ukraine. And in this peace fund, they had budgeted something like 2 billion euros. 1 billion euros would go to EU member states to give up their ammunition, and they would be reimbursed by this peace fund. And another billion was going to go to the procurement of some sort of ammunition production. They were going to find some company to produce this ammunition, and they were going to get this 1 billion contract from the EU Peace Fund. And basically what the French are saying, according to this Polish article, this Polish media reporting, is that the French are saying, you know what, we want to get compensated for weapons that we sent to Ukraine that Ukraine has not even requested in the context of this peace fund. We want to get reimbursed for these weapons, and you know the Poles are saying, why should you guys get reimbursed from this slush fund for weapons that Ukraine has not requested via this slush fund? Well, it's all about money, everybody. It's all about money. Basically, what's going on is this: because Poland and Czechia and the Baltic states and all of these countries are super connected to Ukraine, and they've been the ones that have been at the center of organizing weapons to Ukraine and dealing with the Zelensky regime. They've got a fast track. They've got the lead to get these funds, right? They're at the front of the line to get this 1 or 2 or whatever billion funds in this EU peace fund that they've created. So they're going to pocket most of this money. But France is saying, no way. We've also delivered weapons. Maybe we don't have that buddy-buddy relationship that you have with the Zelensky regime, and maybe the Zelensky regime didn't request these weapons within this peace fund, but you know, we have delivered these weapons, and we want to get our cut of this slush fund. We want to get our money from this slush fund as well. We want to be reimbursed. So it's just basically a struggle for money. Poland wants to get the bulk of the money from the slush fund, and France is saying not so fast. Just because Ukraine didn't request these weapons via this slush fund doesn't mean we shouldn't be reimbursed via this slush fund. And it's holding everything up. And Poland is complaining that this is holding the delivery of weapons and the production of ammunition. It's holding it up. And Ukraine needs this ammunition really, really fast. It just speaks to the fact that Poland and Ukraine are in this together. They're connected at the hip, man. I mean, boy, oh boy. Poland is betting everything on Zelensky. They are betting everything on Zelensky. And they're expecting big profits from betting everything on Zelensky. Rightly so. Poland is saying, you know, we're the country closest to Zelensky. We're coordinating everything, so we should get most of the money. Why should France get it? There are rumors, and these are just rumors, but these are rumors not only from media that is pro-Russian. These are also rumors that are floating around from pro-Ukrainian media. I believe even former British Intel officer Alistair Crook, I believe he also mentioned this, if I'm not mistaken. But there are rumors that Zelensky is ready to transfer several western regions of the country to Poland in exchange for full-scale military assistance to the Ukraine army in the seizure of Crimea. That's how deep in this Poland has put itself into. That's why Poland is like, Ukraine better win this thing, otherwise we're screwed. That's worrying, because that means that the Polish government, if they realize that Ukraine is getting crushed, they might do some very desperate, irrational things. But the rumor is that Zelensky, when he went to meet with Duda, he told Duda, "Look, we'll give you West Ukraine, we'll give you Lviv, take it, just help us get Crimea." Crazy, wild stuff, wild stuff. Mr. Duda, listen, Duda. If you help us take Crimea, well then I will give you Lviv. Take it. Take it. I don't need it anyway. You can have Lviv. We get Crimea. Sound good? Good? Good deal? I think it's a good deal. And by the way, Mr. Duda, before I go back to Kiev, do you have maybe 3 billion euros to give me? I would like to buy a couple of homes in Krakow. That's the deal that Zelensky is presenting to Poland, according to various rumors. But these rumors are everywhere. I mean, pro-Russian, pro-Ukraine. From what I understand, former British intel. Who knows? Who knows? Let's now shift gears and talk about the sanctions escalator, because we have a new country that is been placed on the sanctions escalator. And this is an EU country. This is a NATO member. And it is Hungary. Big surprise. Hungary has now been placed on the sanctions escalator. Now we know why Samantha Power was in Budapest. She was laying down the foundation for the collective West Orban regime change operation. So she went there, she spoke with the media, and she started to prepare the way for the removal of Orban. And now we have the first brick to be laid on this regime change structure, and it is sanctions against Hungary, specifically against a bank, I believe the International Investment Bank. This bank was created in like 1970. And according to Bloomberg, U.S. officials believe that this bank is being used to fund Putin's war machine. U.S. sanctions Russian-controlled IIB Bank and executives in Hungary. The U.S. says IIB expands Moscow's ability to spy within NATO, and Hungary criticized by allies for keeping close Moscow ties. That is the title from Bloomberg. Unlike other NATO allies, this is a statement from the U.S. ambassador to Hungary. This is his statement. Check it out. Check out this statement. This is not an ambassador. This is someone who feels like they are the ruler of Hungary. This statement from the U.S. ambassador. Listen to this. Unlike other NATO allies previously engaged with this Russian entity, U.S. Ambassador David Pressman told reporters in Budapest on Wednesday, Hungary has dismissed the concerns of the United States government regarding the risks its continued presence poses to the alliance. Hungary, a sovereign nation, a sovereign country, a country with a democratically elected government and leadership. I believe the Orban government has won something like 4 or 5 elections. Internationally recognized, sovereign, democratically elected. Hungary is being sanctioned, has been placed on the sanctions escalator because it has dismissed the concerns of the United States government regarding the risks of having this bank, which happens to have executives who are Russian, as well as executives who are Hungarian. From what I understand, the bank also has executives who are from China and Cuba and all kinds of other countries. But this bank, these executives, sanctions for you. They have been placed on the sanctions escalator. Now, the timing of these sanctions is very interesting, The timing of the sanctions is noteworthy, coming a day after Hungary clinched a new gas deal with Russia. Hungarian and Russian officials also discussed an acceleration of the ongoing expansion of Hungary's PAX nuclear power plant by Rosatom, Russia's state atomic energy agency. So one day after Hungary decides to ink a deal with Russia for energy and to further accelerate or expand the nuclear power plants, the deal that they have with Rosatom. One day after they clinch these deals, these energy deals, the U.S. ambassador to Hungary explains why Hungary has been sanctioned, or why this bank has been sanctioned. And this is just the beginning. Once you're on the escalator, the only way is up. The only way is up. So Hungary has been placed on the sanctions escalator because it defies the will of the United States. And you wonder why all of the countries outside of the collective West are ditching the Biden White House and ditching the USD. I wonder why they're doing it. Why in God's name are all of these countries leaving the USD and ditching the Biden White House? Why, oh why? I just can't seem to figure it out. Maybe, just maybe, it's statements like this coming from the U.S. ambassador in Hungary. You will be sanctioned because you failed to listen to the U.S. government. An EU member state and a NATO member. No one is going to escape U.S. sanctions. Collective West sanctions. EU, UK sanctions. The UK actually sanctioned, yesterday, sanctioned 2 Cypriot lawyers because these lawyers were working with Russian entities or Russian clients in the UK who had business dealings in the UK. One of them was Abramovich, one of these Cyprus lawyers. His client was Abramovich, and the UK sanctioned him because he helped Abramovich hide some of his money or something like that. Give me a break, man. Give me a break. You know, the UK was fine when Abramovich was pumping all the money into Chelsea, into the football club, and he turned Chelsea into this huge international football success story, and he pumped money into the neighborhood and into the area around Chelsea. There, the UK government was absolutely fine with Abramovich. He was a hero. He was a hero. And now look at what they did to him. The UK government can't be trusted. Why should you give your money to the UK government? Why should you invest in the UK? One minute you're their best friend, the next minute they're seizing all your assets, and they're even going after your lawyers. And there are Cypriots that are actually cheering this on. There are actual Cypriots who think this was a good idea. This was a good move by the UK. They don't realize that this is going to hurt Cyprus, because other countries are going to look at what the UK did to Cypriot lawyers, and you know what they're going to say? Maybe we shouldn't work with Cypriot lawyers. Maybe we shouldn't do business in Cyprus. And they don't realize that the UK is, the city of London, is basically taking out competition from Cyprus, which is what the city of London is also doing. It's destroying the competition. And Cyprus is a bit of competition for the city of London, for banking, for moving money around, for creating corporations, for all of these things. So the Cyprus government, in my opinion, the Cyprus government should not let this go. They should do something about this, because in the future it's going to hurt the industry here in Cyprus. It's going to hurt business in Cyprus. Anyway, they also sanctioned, the U.S. also imposed sanctions on Turkish, UAE, and Chinese companies for violating sanctions against Russia. They've gone sanctions crazy, man. It's 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 tragic, but it's becoming a joke now. It really is becoming laughable. Their answer for everything is sanctions. Now, sanctions, just sanction everybody, sanction everything. Turkey, sanctions. UAE, sanctions. Cyprus, sanctions. Hungary, sanctions. Oh, you had a Russian client? Sanctions. Bolshoi Ballet was performing in your city? Sanctions. Russian bookstore? Sanctions. It's getting ridiculous. It really is getting ridiculous. Really, really stupid stuff from the UK, stupid stuff from the Biden White House, but it's to be expected. As the Seymour Hersh article outlined, and as U.S. Intel told Seymour Hersh, the people that are running the show right now are absolutely incompetent. Not that the intel agencies would do any better, but they're not happy with the direction of things. Interestingly enough, the document leaks, have provided the intel agencies a reason now to expand their surveillance on social media. I saw a news report yesterday saying that the intel agencies now are going to expand their surveillance activities on social media because of the document leak. Isn't that interesting how all of this worked out in favor of surveillance and the intel agencies expanding their surveillance and control of the internet and of social media? So that's something to think about. Let's do a clown world and wrap this video up. And my first clown world is connected to my clown world from yesterday, where I talked about the plane of Ukraine Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, precious, my precious. And when he arrived to Canada, everyone was talking about his plane, which had, next to the Ukraine flag, it had a fighter jet emoji and it had praying hands emojis. And the message was, please provide us with fighter jets. By the way, from what I understand, Canada actually has F-18s. So how about that? I was joking around about Trudeau talking about F-18s when Ukraine wants F-16s, and it looks like Canada actually does have F-18s. Anyway, Trudeau spoke some truth. So the plane with the emojis, a lot of people were thinking that these were photoshopped on there to make fun of the Ukraine Prime Minister flying to Canada and then flying to the US on this plane, and the fact that he was begging for F-16s, and he actually put emojis to show how desperate they are for fighter jets. Well, those emojis are real. They really are painted on this plane, because I grabbed a screenshot of Denis Shmyhal, the Ukraine Prime Minister's official Twitter account. Ukraine government official is his label. And the photo that he posted on his official Twitter account is of him getting off the plane in Canada. And you can clearly see those emojis on that plane. The Ukraine Prime Minister's official Twitter account posted the photo. And you can see the Ukraine flag, the fighter jets, and the praying hands. That leads me to believe that they absolutely painted those emojis on on that jet, and they're flying around on this plane with those emojis there to show that they're desperate for fighter jets. This was a media marketing technique. It really shows you the mind of the Zelensky regime, doesn't it? It really shows you how they think, where they actually paint emojis on their plane. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. My clown world, I thought it was a fake. I thought this must have been photoshopped in because no one in their right mind would paint emojis on a plane. No one in their right mind on a state, on a government plane. But they did it. Man. So the Ukraine prime minister was in the U.S. as well, and the other day he met with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and Lloyd Austin actually said that Ukraine has everything it needs to win the war against Russia. He said that we, the United States, have trained a huge number of Ukraine military personnel. We provided Kiev with significant amounts of weapons, and we will continue to focus on expanding the capacity to help Ukraine. I believe the Ukrainians feel that they are in a pretty good position. And Lloyd Austin said that he believes Ukraine has everything it needs to deliver a victory against Russia. My final clown world has to do with Twitter, and of course everyone has seen the BBC interview with Elon Musk, where Elon Musk called out the lies of the BBC, but that's not going to be my clown world. My clown world goes back to NPR and PBS, and I talked about this as well as BBC, but I talked about NPR and how NPR was upset that they were branded state media by Twitter. They got that state media label on their Twitter profile, and PBS was upset because they got that state media label on their Twitter profile. And NPR is so upset that they've been labeled state media on a social media profile. They're so upset with this label that they're going to be leaving Twitter. They're boycotting Twitter. They're going to leave it. And they're going to take something like their 50 Twitter accounts with them. And PBS saw what NPR was doing, and they said, you know what? We're also going to close down our Twitter account. And I imagine the BBC will do it as well. The BBC is actually trying to convince Elon Musk that they're not state media because they have the BBC television tax. So it's not really state media, whatever. Whatever. They're not funded by the UK government. Yeah, right. But the NPR, they're leaving Twitter. They're taking their ball and they're leaving the pitch. All because of a little label on their profile. Man, these people are thin-skinned. I mean, they are really, really, really thin-skinned. Who would have known that all it takes to cancel out fake news Collective West Media was a little label on a social media profile? Who would have thought that that's all it takes to shut these people down? That's it. That is it. And when you do a search for NPR, when you actually search NPR in Google, what do you get? You get public radio finances. Federal funding is essential to public radio's service to the American public, and its continuation is critical for both stations and programming. So even NPR admits that they are funded by the US government, but they just can't have the label. You know why they can't stomach the label? I'll tell you why. They hate having that state label. They say it's because it questions our independence and our editorial decisions. Okay, whatever. They want to continue with the illusion, the fake narrative that they're independent. I don't think that's the reason. Or at least I don't think that's the only reason. They hate having the label of state media because it's the same label that's given to RT and to Russian media and to other state media that they believe is lesser than them. What you're seeing here is their elitism showing. Elon Musk and Twitter has called out their elitism, their colonialism, their imperialism, because NPR and PBS and the BBC, they would mock RT and they'd say, "You're state media, haha, you're state media." And every time RT would break news, even factual news, Even news that was spot on. Whenever RT would break this news, what would the collective West media say? Well, RT is state media. Well, now RT can go to NPR, and if NPR breaks news, they can say, well, NPR has broken this story about whatever, Joe Bidenopoulos, but we have to tell you that NPR is U.S. state media. And they've got that label there, and they hate it. They absolutely hate it. They saw themselves as above RT. You know, haha, you're state media, you're branded state media. Oh, we're state media, but we don't have that label. So everything that you say, we can call it state propaganda. And you're lower than us. Russian state media, blah. Those Russians, Russian propaganda, Putin trolls, Putin apologists, Russian state media. They love those narratives. They love to say that. Well, now people can say, haha, NPR, U.S. state media, Bidenopoulos apologists, Biden trolls, CIA trolls, CIA apologists. Yeah, we can now say that. BBC, UK state media, CBC, Canadian state media, Trudeau apologists, Trudeau trolls. That's why they hate it. That is why they hate it. Elon Musk and Twitter took away their privilege, their elitism. They're bothered by a little label on a social media account. And they're so bothered by it that they have to leave the platform. That is weak. That is weak sauce. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rockfin and Rumble and Telegram, BitChute and ODYSEE, and go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code Good Day. Check us out on Instagram as well. The Duran shop on Instagram, that is. We are running a giveaway up until April 18th. Maybe pick up a Duran backpack right here. Really nice backpack. Simple backpack, a very simple backpack, but really good material. I'm telling you, very, very nice material. And that's the video. Take care.